you can see why. We have a lot of cancellations. So you're looking at the arrivals, just 3 flights coming in this morning before the airport shuts down. A lot of red on this board. And you can see the impact that it's having on the departures as well. A lot of cancellations because you just don't have the aircraft coming in anymore. So a lot of flights have been canceled at this point, but you can see there is white on the board. So there are still flights getting out, but we're really coming down to the wire here with the airport shutting down at 9 o'clock. So several flight delays. They did cause backups here early this morning and last night. So we were told that it was at times a pretty chaotic scene with some people starting to get really worried, starting to panic that they were not going to be able to make it out on an aircraft. We were told that there were long lines at the rental car locations, as well as some people just opted to try to drive to another airport in the state. Now, as I mentioned, Tampa International is suspending all commercial and cargo operations beginning at 9 this morning. PIE in Clearwater, they're going to close after their last flights this afternoon. Orlando International plans to close at 8 tomorrow morning, and then Sarasota International is closing at 4 today. Peter O'Knight, Tampa Executive, and Plant City Airports, they're also closing. TPA is going to reopen as soon as it's safe to do so and after they do a damage assessment. So no set time limit on that. And you are urged to contact your airline if this is going to impact one of your upcoming flights. Meanwhile, many people are evacuating the Bay Area by road, and they're telling us that after seeing the storm surge that was brought in by Helene, they are not taking their chances.
I'm going to Port Charlotte to pick up my mother, who's 92. She was flooded about a week and a half ago, and we're going to have to leave that house and take her over to Boca Raton. This one's really big, and I was really surprised by the storm surge that occurred with Helene, and my understanding is it's going to be worse with this storm.
Now, as people heed evacuation warnings, the interstates have seen major slowdowns. At some points, traffic has been a dead stop. FDOT is allowing the use of emergency shoulder lanes in some parts of the state. That includes along I-4 and 75. Interstate tolls also suspended right now. The roads, they are getting crowded. So are the gas stations. Many had lines stretching down the blocks yesterday. But I can tell you that if you head out early, we have seen gas stations open, and it appeared they had available pumps as well. So it is still possible to find gas out there, but it does mean that you could be waiting in a long line, especially the longer it gets. The good news is, though, it does appear that people are heeding the warnings and preparing themselves to stay safe. Just keep in mind that the bridges will start to shut down as conditions deteriorate. So the Skyway, that's going to close once wind speeds hit 40 miles per hour or higher. And then we also know that the Gandy, the Courtney Campbell, the Howard Franklin, they also will close once conditions get too dangerous to keep them open. So make sure that you're in place and where you need to be well before that happens.
And I think a lot of us, we take Tampa International for granted, so we might show up a little later than we should, probably 2 hours ahead of time, if not more, on a day like today.
Storm. And she was saying, you know, things are running very smoothly despite the delays last night, that it's still able to operate, or you're still able to plan your travels right now as you might normally. But just be aware that with all that red on the boards, you do need to contact your airline. You should be checking before you come here. One more note on that. We did hear from a lady yesterday, and we're going to hear from her in one of our later hours, but she was trying to leave on a flight with a rabbit, and she was turned away, actually, by her airline, by Delta. And so she ended up having to stay and change her plans, not leaving the state because of that bunny. So make sure that your airline is going to accept any pets that you plan on bringing on board.
Okay.
All right, that right there was our Fox 13 Tampa team, and I do want to check out some of the other airports. What you're looking at right here on your screen now is a live look over the city of Orlando. Let's head over to Orlando International Airport. That is where we have Amanda McKenzie with our Fox 35 Orlando team joining us live with more on what they are seeing there as far as cancellations, delays. And Amanda, I know the airport is actually set to close, I believe it's tomorrow, right?
That is correct. And for today, it is still business as usual. In fact, we're seeing some of that morning rush happening right now. But this time tomorrow, it will likely look like a ghost town because MCO is ceasing operations at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. And that is for all commercial flights. So for folks like you and me who would be going on vacation, that is not going to happen. But the good news is the airport will still be open for emergency relief purposes. So if there are any incoming flights here to provide aid for any of the disaster areas, that will still be a possibility. Now, crews spent time getting things ready for the storm on Monday. This is video of them tying down the passenger boarding bridges. There are 117 bridges in total. A shutdown like this doesn't happen often. The last time MCO stopped operations was for Hurricanes Ian and Nicole. The incoming storm has families clamoring to get back to Orlando and others taking precautions to leave. Brooke Adams says she works at the airport, which means she's on call. She says she decided to fly her son to family in New Orleans just in case.
By him going back home to New Orleans, it's just better safe than sorry.
It's important because if we lose the power, I'll go very crazy.
And then, so what are you telling Mom? Because I know Mom is staying here.
I'm telling Mom to be safe.
Now, since there are travel advisories, passengers are usually able to change their flights without fees, but be sure to check with your specific airline. Airport officials here are also reminding folks that this is not a shelter, that the county is opening shelters if you do not feel safe riding out this storm. Reporting live from the Orlando International Airport, Amanda McKenzie, back to you.
All right, Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and I'm sure we'll check back in with you later. We appreciate it. Time now 5:13 on the East Coast and 2:13 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next couple hours to bring you all of your top stories, live events, and breaking news. The big story that we are going to be covering today is, of course, Hurricane Milton. Once a very powerful Category 5 hurricane. It's now weakened just slightly, but it does sound weird to say weakened when it still does have very powerful winds there. We're talking 155-mile-per-hour sustained winds and gusts that are even higher than that. Landfall is expected to take place over along Florida's Gulf Coast. The big question, though, is where, because we know it could be Tampa, it could be Fort Myers, a lot of different possibilities here. So let's pop up our XRAD radar system, and you can get a better look at that storm, which is very well organized. Do want to head to our first 2-minute commercial break of the hour, but a lot more news to get to in just a matter of minutes. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox 516 on the East Coast and 216 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of your top stories. And the big story that we will be covering all morning into the afternoon and evening and going 24/7 until the storm makes landfall is Hurricane Milton. As you can see there on the left-hand side of your screen, we do have the latest stats. As of the latest update from the National Hurricane Center right here, we are talking about a Category 4. That is a very powerful major hurricane with maximum winds of 155 miles per hour. But also, there are gusts that are a lot higher than that. We know yesterday when the storm was considered to be a Category 5 that there were actually gusts reported that were over 200 miles per hour. So again, this is going to be a very powerful storm, and you can see it right there on our XRAD radar system. It does look like our Orlando team is going into their full weather coverage here, so let's pop up the audio and listen in.
This is near Tampa. You can see the one side, almost no traffic, but look at the backups. Obviously, people trying to get out of the Tampa Bay area. That is certainly going to be difficult for all of those people. And that's with people over on the side, on the shoulder, trying to expand that road.
And you know, the interesting part about this is the day to do that. If you are going to get out, as the governor said in his news conference yesterday, this is really like your last day to be able to get out safely and get to a safer place. So having said that, let's turn things over now to Brooks and also Jess standing by with a look at what this storm is going to bring. Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we're going to drill down today on local impacts here in Orlando because a lot of those folks in Tampa are evacuating here for safety. So just to give you that perspective, right, the impacts here will be lower than they will be in Tampa Bay. Folks in Tampa are running from the water, the storm surge, and they'll come here to hide from the wind. So that's the thing. Run from the water, hide from the wind. That's why everybody's getting away from the coast. We're going to talk about impacts with Jessica county by county, but let's drill down to the latest metrics right now. This is a Category 4 in the Gulf. It's about 600 miles away from Tampa Bay. It's about two days or so from landfall. It's going to come in Wednesday evening. So, well, including today, 2 days. So tomorrow night, 5 a.m. advisory winds of 155. So it's still a powerful Category 4. It's not quite a Category 5. It was yesterday. It peaked at 185. It's likely to maintain this strong character through the day today. It's not going to significantly increase in strength. It may bump up to a Cat 5 again, but not quite as strong. But then it'll start a general weakening trend as it heads toward Tampa. That said, the impacts will be very significant there in Tampa because it's going to bring with it a big storm surge. That's why folks are getting out. And also it's forecast to make a landfall as still a Cat 3. This would be Wednesday evening, Wednesday night, and that would still cause significant damage with winds that could gust realistically on the ground over 100 miles per hour, especially on the beaches, the beach communities with the storm surge coming in could surpass 15 feet. But look at the timing, 2 a.m. Thursday. So this may come in a little bit later than the earlier projections of Wednesday evening, and that'll be significant for impacts here because we're probably not going to see the worst of the actual hurricane impacts as far as wind goes until 1, 2 in the morning Thursday, as this then crosses through the region and then moves out over the Atlantic Thursday afternoon. And in doing so, we're actually to catch some stronger winds on the backside of this. We may see our biggest hurricane force winds once day arrives on Thursday east of Orlando. Hurricane warnings in the hot pink. We've got hurricane warnings on the immediate coast as well. Hurricane watches in effect for inland Brevard and Volusia counties up into Flagler County. That's all metrics. We've got a hurricane coming. Fox 35 storm tracker radar right now. Today's going to be a normal day, okay? It's going to be cloudy. We're going to have some showers around. We're catching some downpours here at Port Orange and Samsula. This is not related to Milton. This is just thanks to the presence of a front and a low pressure system to our south and east. Also catching some rain around Titusville. So today is Tuesday. Orange County, Seminole County, kids are going to school. It's early release, at least in Seminole County today. Tomorrow school's out. But yeah, today's a normal day. We're going to have scattered showers as you're heading out and about. Here is 11 p.m. Still winds 15 miles an hour, scattered showers. The impacts start arriving Wednesday late morning with the first bands coming through where we could see isolated tornadoes. That's a possibility. As far as Wednesday afternoon goes, 5 o'clock, that's when the first main bands will come through. Remember, this doesn't make landfall till like midnight or so, maybe a little bit after in Tampa. But I want you to pay attention to the wind gusts because, yes, we're going to be getting the rain, and I think that rain is going to be one of the major impacts for our region. That is flash flooding rain. It could enter homes. Not unlike Ian, in. Now, we could see some isolated tornadoes mixed in here through 10 o'clock on Wednesday. There's the core of the hurricane coming through. Most of the rain along and north of the track. That's an important differential thing there, because that's where we could see those big 8 to 15-inch rainfall totals leading to the flash flooding. But look at this, 7 a.m. on Thursday. Look at the winds, 35, 50, 60 miles an hour. I mean, it's like tropical storm force winds, right? Kind of near the core of this thing. But this is where it gets notable, you could say. As the system moves away, that's when the winds start to pick up. Yeah, once it emerges into the Atlantic, then we start catching that north wind of like 75 to 90 miles an hour, 93 on Daytona Beach, possibly 74 mile per hour wind gusts, Sanford, about noon on Thursday. So we may not see the big wind out of this thing until the rain's out of here, until the flooding rain is gone and it's just showers. That's when we'll start to see the wind, and then finally the wind will dissipate as we get into Thursday night. And a look at the rainfall through the duration of this thing as it tracks to our south. We're going to see a widespread 7 to as many as 15 inches. You know, this is the European model showing some spots getting as many as 2 feet of rain. It's hard to say if that would happen in this spot, Putnam County, or if it would happen farther south, but I mean, that would be a lot, right? Ian, we got about 17 to 20 inches, and you remember the flooding from that a couple of years ago. Okay, that's the latest here as far as impacts in Orlando go. Obviously, it's going to be a whole slew of impacts in Tampa, but we're in Orlando. This is our viewing area. We got folks here that have evacuated here watching from hotels. They want to know what to expect here and also along our coastline. Here's Jessica Dobson with the latest.
Yeah, when we take you county by county, we want to talk about the worst of the impacts and when exactly they're going to be taking place. So this is going to be for Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and also Polk counties. If you're tuning in from any of those spots, we're looking at Wednesday late tomorrow night and early Thursday morning. Wind gusts as high as around 75 miles per hour for most of those spots. And then we're looking at heavy rainfall totals in upwards of almost 10 inches in those counties in particular. Now, when it comes to our coastal counties, impacts will be looking a little different, and so will the timing. We could see wind gusts in upwards of 85 to 100 miles per hour. Beach erosion, storm surge of 5 feet will be possible. And then the worst of the weather is going to be taking place likely very early Thursday morning, lasting through roughly the early afternoon. So going to be a little bit later in terms of the worst of the impacts. However, you'll start to feel them a little sooner than that, but the worst will arrive likely Thursday morning. And when it comes to Marion, Lake, and Sumter counties, we're expecting the worst of the weather to arrive Wednesday night into Thursday morning as well. Again, late Wednesday night. High wind gusts and upwards of 75 miles per hour, and those rainfall totals as high as around 10 to 12 or even close to 15 inches in a couple of isolated spots can't be ruled out in this area in particular, which will likely be north of the track. All right, Brooks, I will send back over to you.
Jessica, thank you. That is really good information. So yes, today.
All right, so Orlando right now in their 7-day forecast, but I do want to bring you a lot of their team coverage. As you can see, they have that array of reporters, and Amanda McKenzie joined us just moments ago to break down the latest at the airport. There are other reporters out as well, including Morgan Parrish. We've had her on the show quite a bit. We'll also be checking in with our Fox 13 Tampa team. They have Regina Gonzalez and Kelly Cowan, as well as others. A lot of coverage this morning. I do want to show you the XRAD radar system. It is on the top right-hand side of your screen. You can see Hurricane Milton, now a Category 4 hurricane with maximum winds of 155 miles per hour, but gusts even higher. And as you heard Brooks say there during that forecast, he did say that the storm could strengthen once again into a Category 5, but the storm right now, and I don't want to get too technical, is undergoing an eyewall shift here, a change. So we are going to see it weaken quite a bit as it does make landfall there along the Gulf Coast of Florida. That's expected to take place late Wednesday night into Thursday morning. A lot of uncertainty about where that landfall will be. And then the bottom of your screen right there, that is a live look over Naples, Florida at the water. Obviously still dark out, but we'll get a better view of kind of the situation there ahead of the storm, the calm before the storm, if you will, in just maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours at this point. Do want to head to a quick 2-minute commercial break now at 5:25 on the East Coast and 2:25 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow. We will be right back. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, and you are taking a live look from the Fox 35 storm team. Right now, this is a camera, an aerial camera, over the city of Orlando, which will see the impacts of Hurricane Milton as the storm does move inland. Now, we do know landfall, as I mentioned, expected to take place over along the Gulf Coast of Florida. That's likely still going to be a hurricane, maybe a Category 2 or 1 at the time, but we are talking about a serious situation for many in the state of Florida less than 2 weeks after we saw Hurricane Helene hit as well. All right, so we have been checking in with our different affiliates, and I do want to check in with Fox Weather as Robert Ray is over along the coast here. I believe he's in Fort Myers. Let's pop up the audio and listen in.
Hurricane Milton, a monster out in the Gulf of Mexico, making its way to Florida's peninsula. And here in southwest Florida, on Fort Myers Beach, you see the remnants of Hurricane Ian from 2 years ago. And they are still rebuilding, nowhere near a rebirth, even though they have tried. But they keep getting punched, unfortunately. And this year, they have endured Tropical Storm Debbie, which inundated the downtown area, 2 to 4 feet on Fort Myers Beach of storm surge that came in. Water rushing into businesses and homes once again. And then less than 2 weeks ago, Hurricane Helene, as it brushed the side of this part of the Gulf Coast, pushed in gusty winds and rains, unfortunately, stopping that rebirth and that rebuilding. And now mandatory evacuations underway here that went in at 3 p.m. Eastern today on Monday, not only in Fort Myers Beach, but so many areas up and down the Gulf Coast. And people putting sand into bags, trying to shore them up, throwing them into the back of vehicles, as heavy as they are. Children out there helping as well.
I'm very afraid.
Do you think that people are going to evacuate and heed the orders of that?
Yes, I do. After Ian, they are. As soon as I get my shutters up and my sandbags in, I'm probably out of here myself because I can't live through that again. It's going to be bad enough coming back to the devastation.
It's really tough to see the heartbreak in all the people, and we're hoping this one passes us by.
So we've had the house here on Ohio Avenue for 20 years. We love this place, and we just finished rebuilding it about 9 months ago after Ian, and hopefully this one the story isn't quite told on the path. So preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Hard to listen to all these people with such, frankly, post-traumatic stress syndrome as they have gone through a ringer with Mother Nature in the past couple years and about to once again. About 5,000 National Guard members are on the ground awaiting to be deployed by Governor Ron DeSantis in the aftermath. There will be catastrophic wind, storm surge like we have never seen before. And the size of this hurricane likely will continue to grow no matter what the strength is. It's not about the category. It is about the impacts. Cannot stress that enough. If you are in the zone and you've been ordered to evacuate and you have the means, you still have time. Get out. Do it. Save your life. Reporting in Fort Myers Beach, Robert Ray, Fox Weather.
Great advice there, because as we always say, the category, we look at it so closely, but it's not about the category. It's a lot of the flooding and the storm surge there that does lead to unfortunate deaths. So don't necessarily pay attention to the category. Obviously, it's important because of the wind, but you really need to evacuate if you are in one of those mandatory evacuation zones. I do want to pop up our XRAD radar system here. As you can see, what we are dealing with right now, this is Hurricane Milton. And what I'm doing is pulling up, actually, the latest stats coming in from the National Hurricane Center on Milton. As of right now, the latest update coming in from the National Hurricane Center that was issued just about 30 minutes ago. We're told that the storm has picked up just a little bit of speed, moving east-northeast at 12 miles per hour. Right now, the minimum pressure, some people do track that, 924 millibars. And it's important to note that the storm actually dipped below 900 millibars at one point yesterday when it was still a Category 5 hurricane. Right now, maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour, so it is classified as a Category 4 hurricane. But what is important to note is that is just 2 miles per hour away from actually being a Category 5 once again. We could potentially, as it does travel over these warm waters in the Gulf, see it strengthen back into a Category 5 temporarily, but all indications are that as it does undergo this eye wall replacement situation, it is going to weaken just a bit. It does appear that it will make landfall as a Category 3 major hurricane along the Florida Gulf Coast. That is set to take place sometime Wednesday night into Thursday morning, but still a lot of uncertainty as there are plenty of factors that are going to determine how all of that plays out. Want to pop up this live camera that we do have. It's one of many over in Central Florida as it's the calm before the storm for so many folks there. You can see it is still dark out over in Naples, Florida, but that is one of the areas that could potentially see that landfall. If you did look at the cone of uncertainty as it's known, it does appear that it could make that landfall as far south as Fort Myers, Naples, but as far north as just north of the Tampa area. Again, a lot of uncertainties at this point. Do want to check in with our Fox 13 Tampa team as they are starting their live team coverage.
Hey, Dave. Good morning.
Hey, Dave. Good morning. Trying to find out some little difference, little nuances in Milton that we haven't talked about, but really it's a Category 4, very strong Category 4 storm. It was, of course, that really its its maximum potential yesterday when it got to like 180 mile per hour winds. But with an eye roll replacement cycle, it's a weakening process. It's a twofold process. Number one, it does drop the core winds a little bit, and it dropped it down to 155, which is still pretty high. But the other aspect is it expands the wind field out a little bit. So tropical storm force winds, for instance, now go out 100 miles from the center. So that's a little different as the storm is going to grow larger in size as it begins to approach the west coast of Florida. The computer models are clustered. They're tightly clustered, and this is coming onshore somewhere between, let's say Citrus County and then down to the Sarasota area, somewhere in that particular region. But the one other difference that I'm noticing this morning is the timing of this. If you remember yesterday's cone, and we were talking about the storm making landfall Wednesday evening, well, now it looks to be a little bit later, as you can see at 2 a.m. on Thursday morning. Is really more or less where we think this is going to come through. So that changes a couple of things, meaning it's going to be an overnight event, and it'll also be at, I think a little bit closer to many of the high tides, which are early on Thursday morning as well. And then as it moves across the state, it will weaken as it moves back out into the Atlantic. The storm surge warnings are there. We're still anticipating where it makes landfall, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. The hurricane warning, which include our inland locations, are there, and the flood watch. So really all the watches and the warnings are the same as yesterday. We're going to go through and unravel some of what we think the wind speeds are going to be coming up in a few minutes. But again, the main impact for this storm is not going to be until tomorrow, beginning late in the day, right through early on Thursday morning before the sun comes up. We're just pushing it back a few hours. By the way, today we will have some showers around with highs in the lower 80s, okay?
All right, Dave, thank you. 5:37 is our time, and we are dealing with delays this morning. Quite unusual for this time of the morning, but people are heeding the warnings. They are evacuating out of Tampa Bay, and that means we are dealing with delays. This is northbound I-75. This is near the north apex where 75 and 275 meet. You can see all 4 of your travel lanes are jammed, and that extends into Pasco County. This is northbound 75 at State Road 54. There was an earlier crash in this backup. The crash is clear, but you can still see that we are dealing with delays through Pasco County, and that's trickling down onto 275 northbound right before the north apex where 275 and 75 meet, dealing with a bit of a backup along the northbound lanes of 275 as drivers approach Bierce Avenue and that north apex. Look at the big bridges. No closures, no delays on the Skyway Bridge. Again, they will shut down the bridge, the Sunshine Skyway, once we see sustained winds of 40 miles per hour.
All right, we know the clock is ticking when it comes to Milton. People need to use this time today to act on evacuation plans and make their final preparations.
And across Pinellas County, many areas are now under a mandatory evacuation order. That includes the barrier islands where access will be cut off today. Fox 13's Regina Gonzalez is on the story for us. She's in Tarpon Springs. Good morning.
Jen Walter, good morning to you. Yeah, right now, as of this morning, access to the barrier islands is only available to residents, business owners, debris crews, and then ride share drivers who are helping people evacuate. But starting tonight at 7 o'clock, the barrier islands will be closed to everybody. Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri says there's going to be plenty of first responders around there. But as we start to see Milton inch closer to our coast, that he doesn't even want anybody out there. Now, we also know FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell was in Pinellas County yesterday, which just truly underscores how devastating Milton is expected to be for this region. It's the first time FEMA has been here before a hurricane. Our team last night got to chat with her after she met with St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch to learn what resources the federal government is providing a city that is already just reeling from Hurricane Helene. The federal response includes moving thousands of pounds of food and water here, along with search and rescue teams. The Army Corps of Engineers have also been mobilized. Criswell, who has also been on the ground in North Carolina following the devastation there from Helene, flew out here for a few hours just to address the seriousness of this threat, which includes damaging hurricane force winds and between 10 to 15 feet of storm surge.
Now we're facing what could be the biggest storm to ever hit this side of Florida and directly into Tampa. And so we just need to take this storm right now, and the point of where we're at is saving lives. I need people to move out of harm's way.
Now, our team also asked the FEMA director to address misinformation that FEMA does not have enough money for hurricane response and recovery that's been going around. She says the agency has plenty of funding to support the ongoing efforts for Helene and Milton, that no one needs to worry about their claims not being taken care of. Meanwhile, we know a number of shelters are now open for people across Pinellas County. Many of them are pet friendly, so just be sure to check the government's website. There are several that you can go to if you weren't able to evacuate to family or friends. I know this is something we've been mentioning in all of the affected counties, but crews have been actively trying to get all of the Helene debris off the curbs and out of harm's way as quickly as possible. But at this point, county officials say, given how many millions of cubic yards there are of it, they're not going to be able to get it all out in time. So at this point, if it's still sitting out in front of your home or business, it's best to secure it as best as you can. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Regina. We will touch bases with you again soon. Thank you. And we know that pets can smell stress.
Yeah, they can.
And they're likely getting a nose full from nervous owners right now.
But storms make them uncomfortable as well. Coming up next, how we can take the best care of our furry friends, even during the worst conditions. We'll be right back.
All right, a big thank you there to our Fox 13 Tampa team. We are checking in with them, as well as our Fox 35 Orlando team, for their live team coverage here as we take once again another look at our XRAD radar system. That is Hurricane Milton right now, as of the last update coming in from the National Hurricane Center. We know the storm is classified as a Category 4, but again, not totally important to pay attention here to that situation with the category, because, I mean, this is just 2 miles per hour away from being a Category 5. That is the highest ranking there on the Saffir-Simpson scale. That is how they rate these hurricanes. Again, it is moving through the warm waters of the Gulf, so we could potentially see the storm strengthen once again into a Category 5 hurricane. However, that is expected to be short-lived as the system there does undergo an eye wall replacement. And I don't want to get too technical, but essentially that's spreading out the energy within the storm, which does mean that it will weaken quite a bit. It's still expected to be a Category 3. That is a major hurricane, as it does make landfall Wednesday night into Thursday morning. This is going to happen along Florida's Gulf Coast, but the question is exactly where that landfall will be. The cone itself is still fairly wide, extending from the Fort Myers, Naples area up north past Tampa. Again, as the storm gets closer, we will have a better idea of exactly where it will make that landfall. 5:43 on the East Coast, 2:43 on the West Coast. Do want to head to a quick 2-minute commercial break, but a lot more coverage to get to in just a matter of minutes. You're watching Live Now from Fox. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox 545 on the East Coast and 245 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of your top stories, live events, and breaking news. Of course, all throughout the day into tomorrow, we're going to go 24/7 here as we track the latest on this major monster storm. We're talking about Hurricane Milton, now a Category 4 storm with maximum winds of 155 miles per hour, expected to make landfall along the Florida Gulf Coast. That is going to happen sometime late Wednesday into Thursday morning, but a lot of factors here at play as to when that will happen. You can see the live cameras coming in from Florida. Obviously still dark out, so not a lot to see, but the top right-hand side of your screen, that is a live look over Orlando, Florida, and there at the bottom right, that is a look over at Naples. Our Fox 13 Tampa team is in their full weather right now as they break down the latest on Milton. Do want to pop up the audio here so we can listen in.
And now, Fox 13 meteorologist Dave Osterberg with your Sky Tower radar forecast.
Waking up at 5:44, trying to figure out, okay, what's new, what's different from yesterday. How about we go through the Cliff Notes, right? Hurricane Center in their 5 o'clock discussion. I'm going to Cliff Notes it for you. How does that? There's a high confidence that Milton is going to be an extremely dangerous hurricane at landfall. It is forecasted to be a major hurricane, a Category 3 at landfall. Okay, little change to the track forecast, and I don't think there'll be much of a change at all. But landfall a little bit later, meaning we may not get a landfall until very, very early on Thursday morning, like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, in that time frame now, rather than at about 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Milton's wind field is going to double on its approach to the state. Okay, right now, tropical storm force winds go out about 100 miles from the storm. But as the storm approaches and it starts to weaken, it's going to spread its energy out, and the tropical storm force winds as it's approaching the state or on the state may get closer to 200 miles from the center of the storm. So that's what it means when I tell you that the wind field is going to double. And this one, of course, is the most important one, the life-threatening storm surge. There will be a life-threatening storm surge of close to 10 to 15 feet where it makes landfall and just to the south, maybe 20, 30 miles, that particular stretch. That is the only thing we need to continue to fine-tune. I will tell you, the storm is probably going to re-intensify. And I know you're like, 155 is where it's at now. That's strong enough. But this could still intensify a little bit more now that that eye wall replacement cycle is just about finished. And you can start to see these really cold cloud tops wrapping around this new eye, which is forming. And it's going to be a little bit bigger than the other pinhole eye was. Look to the north of this. Look at what all that wind shear is doing. It is around Brownsville. It's a perfect day. Then here you go, the near Category 5 hurricane over here into the Gulf. Now, as far as the computer models go, the extent of the one, well, at least the ones I'm showing you right now, as far north as maybe the Citrus Hernando line, as far south as just south of Sarasota, we're really narrowing in this landfall. And once we can really peg it down, then we can tell you exactly who's going to get that 10 to 15 foot storm surge. But right now, we can't. And that's the unfortunate part, because we would love to know exactly where the highest storm surge is going to be. Category 3 storm making landfall sometime around maybe 1 or 2 o'clock. That's the official forecast from the Hurricane Center. This is Thursday morning now, not tomorrow morning. So what I'm telling you is it's Tuesday. We have today, and we have tonight, and the wee early morning hours of tomorrow, okay, to get ready for this storm, in case you're procrastinating or in case you just have a lot of stuff to do. Somewhere in this 10 to 15 foot range, it's going to verify, and that's going to depend on where the storm comes on shore. That and about 20 miles south will get the worst impact. So on your Tropics Watch, let's kind of roll you through a time frame of when this is going to roll through. Here's Wednesday night, 10 p.m. There's the center of Milton, and here's Tampa Bay. That's really, really close, obviously. And then it makes its way onshore, the Fox model just north of the Tampa Bay area, and then rolls it across the Orlando area. On a path like that, Here's your wind gust forecast. By about 2 o'clock tomorrow, we're starting to get some 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts in. So expect early afternoon, the onset of the winds start to roll in. Then they really start to kick in at about 8 o'clock. And there's going to be a stretch tomorrow night from about 7 p.m. until maybe 4 or 5 a.m. on Thursday. And that's going to really be the worst of it. Notice around 11 p.m., here come your 100-mile-per-hour winds, 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts inland by that point. Yours will pick up Polk County. As you get to about midnight, your winds are getting up to 70, and then they're going to be 90 to 100 in St. Petersburg and Clearwater. And again, that's based on the Fox model. The other models aren't very different. I just have a lot more products to show you with this. So again, the worst of it's going to be after the sun goes down Wednesday until the sun comes up on Thursday. I know. 82 today, mostly cloudy. There will be some showers around today, especially in the afternoon. After the storm moves through, it should be out of here sometime early Thursday. It's going to quiet down. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, sunshine and drier air. We're back. Just a couple.
All right, that was our Fox 13 Tampa team. Again, we are checking in with them as well as Fox 35 Orlando and Fox Weather to bring you the latest. But do want to pop up again a live look at our XRAD radar system as we do track this monster storm. That is how it's being described, because it is one of the most powerful storms in recorded history at this point. That, again, a live look as you see a very well-organized Hurricane Milton. As of right now, we do anticipate that it is going to strengthen possibly back into a Category 5 hurricane briefly before it undergoes that eye wall replacement cycle there, and that is going to spread the energy out around that area. And essentially what that means is that we are going to see the storm weaken just a little bit as it gets closer to landfall. Expected to be a Category 3. That is still a major hurricane. So if you are in that area, you will need to follow the evacuation orders. Do want to head to a quick 2-minute commercial break now at 5:52 on the East Coast and 2:52 on the West Coast. We'll check back in with our affiliates here as our Hurricane Milton coverage does continue. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox 555 on the East Coast and 255 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of your top stories, live events, and breaking news. And no question here, the big story that we will be following all throughout the day And into the night, we're going to go 24/7 here as we track Hurricane Milton, a very powerful storm right now, a Category 4 with maximum winds of 155 miles per hour. But it is important to note that 12 to 24 hours ago, we did see gusts that were reported by hurricane hunters of more than 200 miles per hour. Again, those are the gusts that are there in the storm. But the storm is expected to make landfall still as a monster powerful storm, a major hurricane, Category 3, late Wednesday into Thursday morning. But the big question here does remain, where exactly along Florida's Gulf Coast we will see that landfall. Do want to head over to our Fox 13 Tampa team as they do continue their live coverage. Actually, let's check in with Fox 35 Orlando as they do talk a little bit more about the FEMA funding. That's been a question after Helene, because there's been kind of rumors and things like that that have circulated saying that FEMA is out of money. So how will that impact folks who are impacted by Milton? Let's pop up the audio here and listen in.
Back 541 as Hurricane Milton barrels its way toward a Florida landfall tomorrow. Of course, most residents and FEMA bracing for the worst here. There are fears the agency is not going to have the resources it needs for the rest of the hurricane season. Let's bring in Doug Glazader live in Washington this morning. Doug, good morning.
Good morning.
So obviously there's been a big debate about FEMA's funding right now. They've said they're likely going to have to go back to Congress, but where do we stand right now?
Well, yeah, you know what FEMA is on the one hand trying to reassure people that they have what they need to deal with both Hurricane Helene and of course Milton that's about to hit Florida. But they are concerned about what the rest of the hurricane season will hold for them and whether they have the funds necessary to contend with other disasters. And they say they don't, that Congress is going to have to come back. At the same time, there are questions about FEMA's priorities and about its spending, for instance, on migrants. Now, what FEMA says is that these are different accounts, that they have a certain pot of money to deal with disasters, and that's specifically what they're talking about here. And there is plenty of money, they say, to deal with the two that we're talking about now, Helene and Milton. But it's after that that things get dicey, they say.
Yeah, Doug, obviously, we've followed government enough. You can move money around. It's sometimes hard to track the money because you can say it's for this and it goes somewhere else. And now they've been hit kind of with a 1-2 punch. They're still trying to get off the mat in North Carolina where there was a lot of devastation. People desperately need the money. And now you've got the state of Florida with this major hurricane bearing down on us.
That's right. And, you know, beyond the money, there is a staffing issue as well. The New York Times has this piece about the availability of FEMA personnel, saying that less than 10% of them are available to respond to Milton or any other emergency that happens to crop up right now. So FEMA is having a lot of issues at the moment.
Yeah, Doug, and there's obviously between state, because there are state resources there, but then you get into the federal side, and that's where I think people find out when they get hard why those things definitely matter.
Yeah, and you know, you look at Hurricane Helene, and FEMA argues that they had pre-positioned assets and so on. But look, that's been a tough storm to respond to because the flooding wiped out so many roads. It was so widespread that there is still not really a firm count for how many people have died as a result of that storm. And now we have Milton, which is a very, very intense storm, as you know, that's going to hit sometime tomorrow. And, you know, part of that coast has already been hit by Helene. So this is going to be a real challenge moving forward.
That's a great point, Doug. Let's hope for the best. We know there are going to be some financial issues going forward, but right now let's get through the next 48 hours. Doug, good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
That is Doug Glazader live in Washington this morning. Let's turn to Orange County.
All right, so that is our Fox 35 Orlando team. But what I want to do at the top of the hour here, 6 o'clock on the East Coast and 3 o'clock on the West Coast. Good morning if you're just joining us. We are continuing to track the latest here with Hurricane Milton, now a Category 4 major hurricane with 155-mile-per-hour sustained winds. But it is important to note that the storm does have gusts that are even higher. We know that yesterday some of the gusts were reported more than 200 miles per hour. Again, a very powerful storm that will weaken very slightly as it does approach the Gulf Coast of Florida. It's going to undergo that eye wall replacement situation in there, and we'll kind of spread out the energy among the storm, which means it weakens just slightly. Expected to make landfall Wednesday night into Thursday morning, sometime then, as a Category 3, again, still a major hurricane. Do want to pop up the audio here and listen in as our Fox 13 Tampa team is in their live team coverage.
To do two things: weaken before landfall a little bit and head into west central Florida. Starting to make that northeasterly turn now, as it's been projected for the past couple of days. And the forecast path is honestly, it's really unchanged. And at this point, it's going to stay within that little yellow cone and be tweaked to 20 miles here, 20 miles there. It is forecast to be a 125-mile-per-hour storm, a Category 3 upon landfall, which will be Thursday morning now. There's the one difference that I'm thinking is that late Wednesday night into early Thursday, it makes landfall somewhere in this general area, from Sarasota to Crystal River, probably closer to the Tampa-Sarasota area, and that's going to be late Wednesday or early on Thursday. So 10 to 15-foot storm surge is expected where the storm makes landfall and just to the south of it. Hurricane warnings are out. Again, all the weather is going to happen late tomorrow and tomorrow night. So we have another Gen day, and we have tonight and early tomorrow morning to continue to get ready for this. But okay.
All right, and from the traffic standpoint, it does look like the Bay Area are heeding the warnings. They are getting out of town because we are dealing with heavy traffic, unusual for this time of the morning, and we've been seeing heavy traffic since 4 a.m., the start of Good Day Tampa Bay. So this is northbound I-75, just after State Road 54. You can see all of your travel lanes are busy, and even busier along northbound 75 at the north apex where 75 and 275 meet. Eastbound along I-4, seeing some flashing lights. That's adding to the heavy traffic eastbound along I-4 in the area of US 27 as drivers make their way toward Orlando. Sunshine Skyway Bridge is open. Just want to remind drivers that it will shut down once we see sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. A couple other traffic notes. Tolls are suspended as of yesterday morning for the next 7 days. They're also enacting emergency shoulder use. You're able to use the shoulders on the interstate eastbound along I-4 from I-75 to Champions Gate. Also northbound along 75 from I-4 to I-10. Uber offering free rides to the shelters with the promo code Milton Relief, so drivers can use that. Also talking about the buses, Hart giving free rides to shelters until 8 p.m. tonight when they're suspending service. PSTA also offering free rides to shelters until they suspend their service at 2 p.m. Laura?
All right, Jen, thank you. We got an update now on some of the evacuation orders. Hillsborough County has issued evacuation orders for zones A and B, and for all mobile and manufactured homes. In Pinellas County, it's zones A, B, and C. Manatee County has issued evacuations for zone A, B, and C as well, and mobile homes. In Sarasota County, people who live in zones A and B and in mobile homes and houseboats, they have been ordered to evacuate. And then in Pasco County, zones A, B, C, mobile homes, and those in low-lying, flood-prone areas have been ordered to evacuate. For Hernando County, residents west of US 19, that includes zones A, B, and C. They've been ordered to evacuate. And in Citrus County, mandatory evacuation start at 8 a.m. today for anyone in mobile homes or manufactured homes. So you can search individual county evacuations on our website, always, fox13news.com. They're also scrolling at the bottom of your screen. And if you're evacuating by air, you are running out of time.
Tampa International Airport is set to close in just a few hours, and our Kelly Cowan is live at the airport right now, where a lot of people are trying to get as far away from this storm as possible. Hey, Kel, good morning.
Good morning to you. Yeah, a lot of people trying to get on those final flights before Tampa International closes up here at 9 o'clock this morning. And you can see, unfortunately, there is a lot of red on the board. There are still flights taking off, but a lot of flights have been canceled. And that caused a bit of a panic here yesterday as several people trying to get out of here ended up on some of those canceled flights and having to make alternate arrangements. So things were a lot busier than we're seeing this morning. This morning, fairly quiet. But as I mentioned, Tampa International suspending all commercial and cargo operations beginning at 9 this morning. PIE in Clearwater, they're going to close after their last flights today. And Orlando International, they plan on closing at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Sarasota International closing at 4 today. Now, Tampa International says it's going to reopen as soon as it's safe to do so. That'll be after a damage assessment. So no exact timeline on that. You are urged to contact your airline line if this is going to impact any of your upcoming flights. But we did meet one woman who's been working nonstop the last few days to try to help University of Tampa students, many of whom are from out of state, trying to help them evacuate. She says in addition to getting students through flight schedules, buses, trains as well, she has also been working to soothe the nerves of worried and anxious parents. Several delays here, as I mentioned last night, left many of them wondering if their kids were even going to make it home.
Last night, it was crazy. There were people everywhere. It looked kind of busier to me than it did Christmas and holidays. This is going on my 5th year that I've been doing this, and this was the most packed I had seen it, but it was a controlled packed, and we really do have the best airport, I think, in the whole United States. We're very efficient. They get the kids fast.
Now, as I mentioned, several flight delays caused big backups here yesterday. Some of those flights didn't take off until 1 this morning, and that led to many passengers opting to rent cars instead. They waited in long lines to try to drive themselves to other airports in the state or simply drive themselves out of the state. They're going to be in good company evacuating on the Bay Area roads. As you just heard Jen explain, people are thankfully heeding the evacuation warnings, but that means interstates have seen major slowdowns, and at some points, traffic has been at a dead stop. There are also very crowded gas stations right now. Many of them had lines stretching around the blocks yesterday. And just keep in mind that once hurricane conditions, tropical storm force conditions start to pick up, we will start to see the Bay Area bridges start to close down as well. The Skyway closes once wind speeds reach 40 miles per hour. And we know that the Courtney Campbell, the Howard Franklin, and the Causeway are all going to close down once conditions really make it unsafe to be on those roads. So just keep that in mind as you make your plans today, and make sure that you are in place well before any of that inclement weather starts.
All right, Kel. Good advice. Thank you. And evacuations are now underway across Manatee and Sarasota counties.
Yeah, people who live on the beaches are really running out of time to get out safely, too. Fox 13's Matthew McClellan is live in Bradenton Beach with a look at what they're dealing with there. Matt, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Laura. I was looking over my shoulder here and that engine coming. So the only trucks, only vehicles you're going to see out here right now are debris collection, people picking up what they can. Really a desolate situation out here on Bradenton Beach, which is really what you want to see. Not a single light is on. Tells you that people have taken those evacuation orders very seriously. And when you look here, you see why. I mean, this front porch, this is from Helene, of course, less than 2 weeks ago, on the brink of collapse. We're still looking at standing water out front here. And then if you look down, you'll see a pile of insulation, and there are refrigerators and washers and dryers, all of this debris, which could become very, very dangerous and really compound matters. You know, the 10 to 15 feet storm surge is intimidating and alarming in and of itself, but you add all this loose debris that is unsecured, add that to the mix, and you were talking about a compounded danger situation, and that is why we believe folks really are taking heed and getting out of here. I'll tell you, on the drive down to Bradenton from Tampa, we saw very few gas stations, if any, that appeared to be in service. Even the 7-Elevens are boarded up. And then, of course, on I-75, it's a heavy and slow go on the traffic as people are leaving. Let me put up some information out of Manatee County, some need-to-know stuff for today. We know evacuation orders are in place. They expanded on Monday. In addition to levels A and B in Manatee County, along with RVs and mobile homes, level C areas are now ordered to evacuate as well. This took effect 2 p.m. Monday. We are well past that point. Emergency shelters now open at schools in Palmetto, Bradenton, Mayaca City, Parrish, and Lakewood Ranch. There is a special needs shelter opening as well, but you do have to pre-register for that. The county warning folks that at 10 a.m. it is shutting off potable water service to the island cities. That is Anna Maria, which includes Home Beach and Bradenton Beach, Longboat Key as well. Sanitary sewer service also going offline today at 10. All of this, again, with 10 to 15 feet of storm surge in mind. Further south in Sarasota County, an evacuation order is in place for levels A and B, along with manufactured communities. Same goes for boat homes. If you live in level C, officials say be prepared to evacuate if there's an increase in projected storm surge. Evacuation centers in Sarasota, those are going to open today at 10 a.m. Also at 10 today, like in Manatee, Sarasota County shutting off potable water for folks on Siesta Key and Casey Key. Also closing lift stations for wastewater services for these customers. This is to protect the community's infrastructure which the county says could get inundated by storm surge, by high tide. Self-service sandbag stations, those are going to be opening today from 8 to 12 in Sarasota and Venice. You do need to bring your own shovel. Back here on Bradenton Beach, we know law enforcement is going to be leaving Anna Maria tonight. We will not see them after things begin to really pick up. So they're letting folks know that if you plan to ride this out here, you will be on your own. Let's listen.
What I'm asking people to do is to leave the island. Get out of here by tomorrow, at the end of the day tomorrow, be gone. There's not going to be anybody out here to help you. In Helene, we were able to come out and do some rescues for some families with kids. We will not be here. We will be leaving the island tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow evening now being this evening, Tuesday. In Sarasota, our crews saw linemen with Florida Power and Light on Monday staging at Robarts Arena to be deployed to areas where power will need to be restored. Crews already seen heading out to prepare and get mobilized. Again, the big takeaway, Laura and Russell, this morning is that sandbag locations in Manatee County, those are open from dawn until dusk. And in Sarasota, they open at 8 o'clock, 8 until 12. And that's while supplies last. And then water, of course, is going to shut off at 10 a.m. All necessary precautions. And again, I think it's worth repeating. You know, we're talking about 10 to 15 feet of storm surge and adding into the mix stuff like this.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Matt McClellan live for us this morning in Bradenton Beach. Matt, thank you.
And for those using public transportation to evacuate, the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority is providing free transit up until at least 2 p.m. today. After that, the buses will only run specific evacuation services for the county. All bus services will be suspended tomorrow. And the buses in Hillsborough County are also offering free rides today until it suspends service at 8 p.m. tonight. The service, that extended service yesterday after the storm's landfall was delayed. The Tico Line streetcar will also stop running at the same time.
Now, in Hernando County, the county is opening 3 storm shelters this morning at 8. That includes Challenger K-8 in Spring Hill, West Hernando Middle School in Brooksville, and the County Enrichment Center, also in Brooksville. All 3 are also pet-friendly. You can contact the Sheriff's Office if you need transportation to that. Again, Jen said that Uber is offering free rides to shelters. Hernando is also reopening 4 sandbag locations today. Now, Fox 13 continues our complete storm coverage on Hurricane Milton, even when you're away from the TV. We've got any updates on evacuations, any closures, and the storm's latest track. It's all on our website, fox13news.com. It's 24 hours a day.
And we are going to be 24 hours a day as well as we do track the latest here on Hurricane Milton. As of right now, the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, they're releasing those every couple hours or so, but the last one came in about an hour and 13 minutes ago. And as of then, the storm has weakened just slightly down to a Category 4. Still, though, a very major monster storm at this point with maximum winds of 155 miles per hour. And it is expected to strengthen slightly, possibly back into a Category 5. That is the highest level of hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is the way that those hurricanes are rated. But we are told that due to that eye wall recreation, so to speak, we are going to see the energy kind of shifted outward. And at that point, the storm will weaken just a little bit before it does make landfall. Still, though, expected to make that landfall as a Category 3 major hurricane over along the Gulf Coast of Florida. But the question does remain exactly where that landfall will be. Let's pop up our XRAD radar system so you can see the cone of uncertainty, as it's called. It's getting a little bit more concise, a little narrower as we see the storm get closer to landfall. That landfall expected to take place Wednesday night into Thursday morning, but there are a lot of factors at play here, so it is important to note that things can change rather quickly, and that's why we'll keep you updated right here up to the minute on Live Now from Fox. Do have to head to a quick break at 6:14 on the East Coast and 3:14 on the West Coast. You're watching Live Now from Fox. We will be right back. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 6:16 on the East Coast and 3:16 on the West Coast, as we do continue to cover the latest on Hurricane Milton, now a Category 4 with those maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. But as I've been telling you throughout the morning, it's important to note that gusts were reported yesterday inside of the storm at more than 200 miles per hour. This is now one of the most powerful, strongest storms ever on recorded history. Again, important to note that it has weakened just slightly down to a Category 4, but that doesn't mean much because we are still talking about a major hurricane. As it does see that eye wall recreation undergo here, the energy will kind of spread out within the storm. So it is expected to weaken just a little bit more as it gets closer and closer to the Gulf Coast of Florida. But the question does remain exactly where that landfall will be. I do want to really quickly pop up this live image of the XRAD radar system. You can see a very well-organized Milton on your screen, still far off the coast of Florida. But again, some reorganization going to get underway, so the storm will lose a little bit of that energy and will weaken down to about a Category 3. That is what it's expected to make landfall as. But it is important to note here that things can change really at the drop of a hat. So we're going to have all of the details up to the minute right here on Live Now from Fox. As you can see in this live camera here on your screen, that is a live look over Orlando. And as of now, it appears the storm, of course, once it makes landfall, will weaken just a bit, but still likely to be a hurricane as it impacts areas that are more inland, like Orlando. Again, a live look over the city now as we check in with their team of reporters. Fox 35 Orlando does have extensive team coverage.
Bracing for Milton. The hurricane is now a major storm on a path towards Florida.
Even if it weakens, it's still going to be a major storm. Don't mess with it.
Millions are under evacuation orders, and the message from the state is clear. Get ready.
This is a storm that not to be played with. It's a storm that is going to be unprecedented.
Good Day Orlando is your place to turn as Central Florida prepares for Hurricane Milton. And welcome, everybody. Hurricane Milton is our big story this morning. It is expected to make landfall in Florida tomorrow. We do want to welcome you to the 6 o'clock hour of Good Day Orlando. It is good to see you this morning. I'm Danielle Knox.
Danielle, great to be with you. Hey, I'm Rodney Elijah. Good to wake up with you as well. Got a lot to cover today. We'll do that. Several parts of the state under evacuation orders. I want to take a live look outside I-75 outside of Tampa. This image has not really changed much over the last hour. You're going to see a lot of this throughout Central Florida. You can see cars backed up, people heading north trying to get out of course, they have a lot of evacuations there. DOT opened the shoulders on I-75 around I-4 about noon. Remember, tolls are also suspended as of this morning. The governor saying traffic volume has nearly doubled. We're bringing you live team coverage this morning. Amanda has been at the airport. Morgan checking in with people trying to get gas. That's been a challenge. Deborah watching the roads this morning with people leaving town. We do want to start, though, with Brooks because all of this ties in together. And Brooks, this really is the final preparation day here.
Yes, today's going to be a pretty normal day. Overcast, showers. Kids are going to school this morning in Orange County and Seminole County, so be patient there on the roads with the school buses. But just to really illustrate the normalcy of what today is, right? It's kind of a normal day. We're going to have some scattered showers around. Milton is still about 600 miles away. It does get to Tampa Bay or that region tomorrow evening, tomorrow night. We're going to start to see the worst impacts here tomorrow after dark. So we've got a full day, if not a day and a half, to get ready if you haven't done so already. Inland impacts are going to be a lot different, though, than impacts to the coastline. The storm surge from what was a Category 5 hurricane may re-strengthen into a Cat 5. Right now, it's a really strong Cat 4, 155. The storm surge of this is going to be really significant where it tracks, and that's why everybody's evacuating from the Gulf Coast, because you've got to run from the water, and then you hide from the wind. That's the phrase. Run from the water, hide from the wind. Inland, we're going to be hiding from the wind, but it won't be as windy as it will be at the coastline because it'll be weakening as it moves over. Our big threat in Orlando is going to be, yes, there will be wind, but the flooding threat, the flash flooding threat will be a real problem, and it may rival that of Hurricane Ian. So I don't want you to be surprised when the waters start rising. If you're in a neighborhood where flooding happens, make sure you get your sandbags and prepare as if Hurricane Ian is coming. It's going to be one of those setups for us, especially north of Orlando. Now, we are going to have limbs breaking, maybe even trees falling, leading to power outages, but we're not going to have the Gulf Coast storm storm surge impacts obviously being inland, and we're not going to have the winds of 125 miles per hour like they're getting on the beaches as this thing makes landfall. All right, if it hits Tampa as shown, Tampa is going to catch a huge storm surge, and it's going to be one of those really big things that has happened in 100 years. If it heads just south, which is possible, Bradenton, it would spare Tampa of the worst storm surge. They'd still get some rising water, but it actually might empty the bay before it fills back up again. It could hit as far north now as roughly Cedar Key or as far south as Fort Myers. The cone is still big. The track is not totally certain, but the center of the track does take it through or just south of Orlando. That happening between 2 a.m. Thursday when it makes its landfall and about 2 p.m. Thursday afternoon. So this is going to be an overnight thing. You know, I don't see us getting the hurricane force winds in here until probably after midnight. We're going to have a lot of preamble, though. We're going to get a lot of rain on Wednesday afternoon. There's a tornado threat Wednesday afternoon. We're going to catch those hurricane force winds, though, it looks like on the backside of this thing Thursday morning, maybe even toward daybreak for the worst of the wind coming through after the worst of the rain has fallen. And the rain is going to probably include a stripe of between 12 and 17 inches. And that's about what we got with Hurricane Ian. Now, if you're along and south of the center, you know, again, this could shift based on the track. You're not going to have much. So it's a possibility if this does take this track that Osceola County avoids the worst of the flooding, unlike during Ian when they got hammered. But we could see a significant flooding here to the north. So this looks to be the biggest widespread, like, damaging impact for our area. Again, yes, trees will fall, limbs will fall, power will go out, but the flooding's going to be an issue. In fact, the flood outlook for tomorrow is in the high category to extreme for our region. And the track will matter because along that track will determine where the worst rain falls. And of course, the wind, well, it's going to gust over 100 in this purple-pink coloration in the Tampa Bay region. But on the backside on Thursday morning around noon, we may see a couple of bigger gusts here on the Atlantic side. We've got hurricane warnings posted. We got much more on the impacts so you can plan accordingly coming up. First off, though, it is traffic time. We've got folks going to work and school today and a lot of folks evacuating.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's one of the evacuation cameras I want to show this morning. This is on I-75 in the Wesley Chapel area. This is in the Tampa Bay region. You can see all those cars are headed northbound this morning. So if you have some family down in the Tampa Bay area and they're trying to figure out what time to leave, I would suggest right now would probably be the best time because those roads are only going to get worse throughout the day. As of right now, Skyfox traffic overview map is showing for the most part we do have green, minus down in the Champions Gate area and also up in the Ocala Villages area. We are starting to see some red this morning. So our cameras are also showing a little bit of slowdowns there at US 27, also at the Champions Gate area, but everywhere else traffic is flowing this morning. Skyfox is also flying over I-4 right now where you can see there's no major issues there in the traffic world, at least in that spot close to the attractions. But again, right in the Gainesville area as you're going northbound there on I-75 just past Micanopy, you will notice some of those slowdowns. So of course I'm keeping a close eye this morning on not only your morning commute but also for those evacuation routes and what those are looking like for a lot of people this morning. I'll send things back to you, Danielle and Ryan.
All right, Deb, Brooks, Jess, thanks for the update this morning. We want to continue our team coverage with Amanda. She's been live at Orlando International Airport. And Amanda, it seems like it has been a steady stream of people as they get ready to suspend operations.
It is definitely getting busier this morning during that morning rush, and I have talked to several folks who say they have changed their flight plans around to leave earlier than they originally expected to get out before the storm, which is really great timing since this airport is going to be shutting down their commercial operations tomorrow at 8 a.m. So any folks who were planning to come in and out of town on vacation, that is just not going to happen until they decide to reopen. But the good news is that the airport will still be open for relief purposes, meaning if there are any planes coming in for disaster relief, that those will still be able to happen. Now, crews were spending all day yesterday getting ready for the storm. This is video of them tying down the passenger boarding bridges. There are 117 bridges in total. A shutdown like this hasn't happened in a while. The last time MCO stopped operations was for Hurricanes Ian and Nicole. The incoming storm has families clamoring to get back to Orlando and others taking precautions to leave. We spoke with one father who just said goodbye to his daughter as she left early on a last-minute flight to go back to college.
Older daughter was in from Southern Methodist University in Dallas on her fall break, and with the arrival of Milton, or actually not knowing when Milton exactly would arrive, we determined she needed to go back to school and not have to hang around here.
Now,
Now, since there are travel advisories, passengers are usually able to change their flights without fees, but be sure to check with your specific airline. Airport officials are also reminding people that this is not a shelter. The county is opening emergency shelters for those who do not feel safe riding out the storm. Reporting live from the Orlando International Airport, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
Amanda, thank you. And from OIA to Tampa International Airport, which is suspending all commercial and cargo operations beginning today at 9 a.m. It will reopen as soon as it's safe to do so after a damage assessment. The Melbourne Orlando Airport will also close today at 2 p.m. We have reached out to Orlando Sanford International Airport about their plans, but so far we have not heard back.
Well, at 6 p.m. today, a mandatory evacuation order goes into effect for some Marion County residents. Now, this applies to people in mobile homes, RVs, and homes that were built before 1994. There are 10 shelters across that county there in Marion that are going to open. That's at 6 p.m. We've got the list on our website. So much info. A lot of that is on the website, fox35orlando.com. Meanwhile, Volusia County, they've got an evacuation order that starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow. This applies to areas east of the Intercoastal Waterway, manufactured and mobile homes. The low-lying areas would also be in there, and other areas that are prone to flooding. This also includes all campsites, all RV recreational parks. Right now, many people, they are trying to beat the morning rush for gas. They tried last night as well, some unsuccessful.
Because there was not a lot of gas to be found in some places. Some area gas stations completely ran out of fuel yesterday. Let's talk about what's happening this morning with Fox 35's Morgan Parrish, who's live outside a gas station in Deltona. And Morgan, good morning to you once again. How is it looking out there right now?
Danielle, good morning. Yeah, so this gas station, we're here at the racetrack right off of DeBerry Avenue. It's been packed all morning long. We've been catching up with some people, and some say they are fueling up before Milton touches down. Joining me right now, we have Kevin. Kevin, tell us a little bit about how you are prepping for what's to come.
So we'll probably start prepping Wednesday, really watching the track of the storms. Mostly it looks like it's going to be a little bit south of us today anyway. So yeah, it'll be Wednesday morning, just putting all the furniture inside and plants and whatnot and boarding up the house.
Yeah.
Just getting ready.
And right now at this gas station, it's packed, a lot of people getting gas, but talk a little bit about what you were saying, how a lot of stations are actually running out of gas.
Yeah, just down the street, the 7-Eleven, everything's bagged up, and here they only have regular gas. Don't know how long that's going to last, so that'd be something to look into as far as where's the fuel coming from and when.
Yeah, and we're actually about to head out to a sandbag location. Is that something that you do when you do your preparations?
Not necessarily where I'm at currently,
Okay.
but highly recommend it for anybody that's in low-lying land, for sure.
100%. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. And yeah, we're going to be speaking with more people, but again, we have been seeing the yellow caution tape, the red stickers on top of pumps saying that they are out. So hopefully people can stock up before they need to evacuate. And again, we are going to be heading out to New Smyrna in just a little bit, so stick with us. For now, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio. Ryan, Danielle.
Hi, good update, Morgan. There's a lot of people getting prepared, and if you can see gas out there, certainly grab that, because a lot of stations have struggled to keep up with supply. They likely will get more this morning. We'll keep you updated with everything you need to know ahead of Milton. Download the Fox 35 News app and the Fox Local app. You can get hour-by-hour updates, and certainly if you lose power during the storm, you can still watch us live on your phone and on those apps with the Fox 35.
A big thank you there to our Fox 35 Orlando team. We're going to be checking in with them, as well as our Fox 13 Tampa team. You'll notice here on our little sidebar off to the left-hand side of your screen at the bottom there, we've learned that at 7:45 a.m. Eastern time, that's a precise time, we do expect that we will hear from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He has been giving several updates all throughout the last few days or so to let everyone know about those final preparations ahead of Hurricane Milton. Again, as of right now, it is a Category 4 storm with maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. It is very powerful, weakening just a bit from that Category 5 status, but still, we're talking a major monster hurricane that is expected to make landfall along the Gulf Coast of Florida sometime late tomorrow into early Thursday. We're going to have you covered all throughout the day here on Live Now from Fox. Let's head to a quick 2-minute commercial break now at 6:31 on the East Coast and 3:31 on the West Coast. On the other side, we will check in with our Fox 13 Tampa team for their live team coverage. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox 633 on the East Coast and 333 on the West Coast. Do you want to take a look at the latest post coming in from the National Weather Service, as that is the latest track of Hurricane Milton. They say Hurricane Milton expected to grow in size and remain an extremely dangerous hurricane when it approaches the west coast of Florida on Wednesday. Again, we do know that the storm should be making landfall sometime late Wednesday into early Thursday morning. A large area of destructive storm surge will occur along parts of the west coast of Florida on Wednesday. This is an extremely dangerous storm. Again, that is a warning coming in from the National Weather Service. If you are in one of those evacuation zones, make sure to evacuate. We also have that hurricane warning. You can see it's kind of highlighted in red there along the Gulf Coast of Florida. Pay attention to those watches and warnings that are in effect. In the meantime, right now, do want to head over live to our Fox 13 Tampa team as we check in for their coverage this morning. Looks like they are in traffic at this moment, but they are going to head over to their live reporters in just a matter of minutes. Again, we do know that they do have a team of reporters. Let's pop up the audio.
Islands will be closing today.
Pretty much everyone who lives on those islands has already been ordered to evacuate. And our Regina Gonzalez is live in Tarpon Springs now with an update on things. Hey, Gina.
Russell, Laura, good morning to you. Yeah, as of this morning, we know the Barrier Islands is only accessible to residents, business owners, debris pickup crews, and rideshare drivers who are helping people evacuate actively. But starting tonight at 7 p.m., the Barrier Island access will be cut off to everyone except for first responders, who will remain there as Milton starts to make landfall. Now, to put into perspective how severe officials think the impacts will be across this region, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell was actually in St. Pete for a few hours last night. Her and St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch told our crews that were able to chat with her that they have been in touch with the White House to make sure more disaster aid resources are ready to go, and that includes moving thousands of pounds of food and water here, along with search and rescue teams. The Army Corps of Engineers have also been mobilized. Criswell has been on the ground in North Carolina following the unfathomable devastation there from Helene, and she actually flew here for a few hours just to address how serious of a threat Milton is. Our team also asked her about misinformation that FEMA does not have enough money for hurricane response and recovery, and here's what she had to say in response.
I have plenty of funding to support the ongoing efforts for Hurricane Helene and the preparatory efforts and the initial response efforts for Hurricane Milton. And so nobody needs to worry about us not having enough money to support that, and no money has been given to any other department or agency from this fund. It is purely dedicated to support the life-saving needs that we need to do, and that's what we're going to do.
Now, mandatory evacuations are in effect for zones A, B, and C, and of course, mobile and manufactured homes. That is more than 500,000 people and more than half of Pinellas County. Now, that also includes all hospitals and assisted living facilities. Actually, coming up in a couple of hours, we are going to have a live update from the president and CEO of Advent Health North Pinellas here behind me. Yesterday, they started getting patients and moving them to safer Advent Health locations across Florida. So more to come on that in just a little bit. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Gina. Talk later. Thank you.
Evacuation orders are in effect now for Hillsborough County for zones A, B, and residents in mobile and manufactured homes. We're joined right now by Danny Alvarez from the Hillsborough County Fire and Rescue to give us an update on some of the last-minute preps. Danny, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so first up, the evacuations. What do residents need to do before they leave their homes?
So we've been stressing, even before Helene, have a plan, be prepared. So if you are in those low-lying areas, A and B, take everything that you feel is essential for yourself and your loved ones. Medications, if you have an emergency kit, go ahead and take that. But the goal is to have a plan, be prepared, and leave. Obviously, if you're in those low-lying areas, go further inland. You don't have to leave the state. Just go further inland, somewhere where there are no threats of flooding.
And to turn your power off, but if you have gas, if you have natural gas, to leave that on because apparently it keeps the integrity of the line. Is that true?
That's what we've heard. I'm not an expert on that, but we will try to get updated information for you and put out the proper information for the people.
Have you guys ever had to deal with this scale of an evacuation before?
I'm sure in the past to some degree, but A and B, that's roughly 260,000 people that are going to be impacted. So we are doing our very best to coordinate shelters, resources for this type of number that's going to be affected. So it's a significant number, and Milton is a very serious hurricane. So we're stressing that. Please be ready. And if you are, again, in those low-lying areas, please get out.
Looks like this storm is going to be a nighttime strike like Helene was. I mean, you guys were working around the clock doing rescues, the high water rescues. You guys were able to access a lot of people. But it sounds like this storm is going to be different.
Well, with Helene, we were able to have over 500 rescues throughout the night. And this storm, it's different because it's more significant than Helene, we believe. We do have the storm surge threats. Right now, they're 10 to 15 feet, the storm surge, what they're projecting. We also have the winds, which we didn't have to deal with Helene. Significant winds, obviously. And the rain, the threat of how much rain the Bay Area is gonna receive. So there are gonna be a lot of challenges, but Hillsborough Fire Rescue, we are ready, and the county is working diligently to have all their resources in place.
What do the next 24 hours look like for you guys?
A lot of coordinating with local levels, state and federal agencies. Fire rescue, we are ready to go. We have all our equipment staged. We have our teams in place. So the residents can feel confident knowing that we are ready. However, we do want to stress, if we do have sustained winds of 40 miles an hour or greater, unfortunately, we are not able to respond. So if you have medical needs, if you feel like you might be in need of 911 during the storm, I just want to emphasize that if the winds are sustained 40 miles an hour or greater, we are unable to go to you. So once the storm winds calm down, then we could respond.
And it does sound like this is very...
All right, and that right there is our Fox 13 Tampa team. What I do want to do is tell you a little bit more about the impacts there of Hurricane Milton, because it's important to note that we're not just going to see those impacts in Florida, but if you're talking about airports specifically, you will see the impacts nationwide. Do want to head out to Lauren Edwards. She is with our Fox 2 Detroit team, and she is live over at Detroit Metro Airport with a look at the situation there. And good morning, Lauren. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. What are you seeing so far as delayed, canceled flights?
You know what, Josh? Instead of just more so delayed and canceled flights, I'm not seeing many flights. And the flights I do see to Florida out of Detroit Metro, which is where I am right now, I'm only seeing 2 flights. And they're mainly to Orlando, none to Tampa, none coming in from Tampa, none going out to Tampa. But, you know, it's incredible how Hurricane Milton is hundreds of miles way to the south of us, but it is impacting Detroiters here, and we've been talking to folks just coming back, how it's been, what's going on. Now they are keeping all eyes on it because according to the National Hurricane Center, Hurricane Milton is expected to hit Florida tomorrow night, and it's expected, you know, to be a Category 3 when it comes. It's a Category 4 right now off the Gulf Coast of Mexico, but when it does hit, those wind speeds will be 125 miles per hour, and it should be out of the state by the next day in the morning. But that was enough information, folks tell us, to get packing and get home to Michigan as soon as possible.
The TV down there was just, this morning was just inundated with, you know, the governor talking about make your plans. They had certain times that you could go get sandbags and things like that.
I've definitely been on edge just because evacuations just keep growing by the minute. I'm going to head to Orlando tomorrow morning, and that's where a lot of people are going. So it's been really, really crazy to see that, just because it's more inland.
And so that's what we've been hearing from a number of people, that it actually is what they're doing. If they are in Florida and they're stuck and they potentially cannot leave, they're trying to go to a place that's more inland, trying to go to Orlando as well. But again, a number of flights just not even leaving out of Detroit Metro at all. A number of flights canceled. Again, I just looked at the board. Nothing in and out of Tampa, only to Orlando. Reporting live here in Romulus in the Detroit area, Lauren Edwards, Fox 2 News.
All right, Lauren Edwards there with our Fox 2 Detroit team. A good reminder that the impacts are going to be felt nationwide. Thank you again for taking the time to join us this morning.
Thank you.
And of course, we will be checking in with our different teams across the country as they are live at different locations showing the impacts, because again, the storm is expected to make landfall as a Category 3 major hurricane Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So we're still hours and hours away, but those impacts will be felt elsewhere. The time now 6:44 on the East Coast and 3:44 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of your top stories and live events from across the country and across the world. Taking a live look at our X-RAD radar system, you can see a very well-developed storm there. Hurricane Milton is still a monster storm, right now Category 4 with those max winds of 155 miles per hour. Gusts, though, even higher than that. We are told by officials that it is possible the storm could strengthen back into a Category 5, but then as it does undergo that eye wall replacement, it's going to spread the energy through the storm, and that essentially means it will weaken slightly before it does make that landfall somewhere along Florida's Gulf Coast, probably as a Category 3 major hurricane. But again, there are a lot of factors at play, so things could change very rapidly. Do want to head to a quick 2-minute commercial break, but a lot more coverage to get to in just a matter of minutes. You're watching Live Now from Fox. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 6:47 on the East Coast and 3:47 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of your top stories. And the big one that we are covering this morning and will be covering all throughout the next several days, going 24/7 here on Live Now from Fox, is Hurricane Milton. Now a very powerful monster storm, a Category 4 with maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. But as we've mentioned throughout the morning, the hurricane hunters that have been studying the storm say they actually saw some of the gusts exceeding 200 miles per hour. as that storm does undergo that eye wall system there, they are going to see the energy kind of spread out. So that'll make the storm weaken just a little bit, likely down to a Category 3. Still, though, a major hurricane as it does make landfall along Florida's Gulf Coast. That will be happening Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Do have to head to our Fox 13 Tampa team's coverage right here as we listen to their forecast. Let's pop up the audio.
It is 6:45. Sky Tower radar this morning showing some rain to the south. So if you are traveling south on 75, and I know a lot of people are going north, and with, you know, good reason, but you can also go well to South Florida as well. You're well out of the cone, but you're going to run into some showers today. I just wanted to throw that by you. This has nothing to do with Milton, by the way, as well. So overnight into this morning, and I know for most of you, this is not the first forecast that you've seen. So you're just kind of like, okay, Dave, what's new? What's updated from last night? Here are some cliff notes from the discussion from the Hurricane Center. This is a quote from the Hurricane Center: a high confidence that Milton will be an extremely dangerous hurricane at landfall. At least a Category 3 storm. Right now, the forecast is for winds to be around 125 as it's making landfall. Little change to the track forecast, but landfall a little bit later. So we're looking late Wednesday night, very early Thursday morning. And by that, I mean, let's say 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. for a landfall, maybe closer to midnight. It's a few hours later than we anticipated it to be for yesterday as well. The Milton wind field is going to double on its approach to the state. Here's what I mean by that. Right now, tropical storm force winds go out maybe 100 miles from the storm. By the time it gets here, the tropical storm force winds might go out closer to 200 miles, and the hurricane force wind field could double as well. As the storm begins to weaken, it's going to transfer its energy from the core, and it's going to push that wind field out. That's what is going to happen. So the storm, basically what I'm trying to tell you is the storm is getting larger. So even though it may weaken a little bit before landfall, it's just going to grow in size. Life-threatening storm surge with maybe 10 to 15 feet possible near and just to the south of where it makes landfall. That is the biggest key to the forecast, is right where that storm comes on shore. 10 to 15 foot storm surge there and about 20 to 30 miles south. And no, that is not an exact pinpoint location that we can give you today. We keep narrowing it down, and we'll do that with this track in a second. But the center is about to reemerge, or at least the eye may probably clearing out in just a little bit because it underwent that eye wall replacement cycle. The wind shear is still sitting up here, but the storm is to the south, so it's not really feeling an impact from that wind shear yet, and it won't throughout the day today. So you'll probably notice the storm re-intensifies back into a Category 5, at least briefly, okay? So don't be surprised to see that happen again maybe later today. The models are so tightly clustered now. I mean, you've narrowed down the west coast of Florida to between Citrus-Hernando County line and maybe Sarasota or just south of Sarasota. That's what the models are saying. And yeah, it kind of coincides with the way the forecast track is set up as well. So as the storm approaches, remember, these hurricanes, these storms, they don't just follow a straight line. It doesn't work that way. They kind of wobble like this, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. So as it approaches the coastline late Wednesday into early Thursday, that wobbling will be huge because it could wobble itself right into Tampa Bay, wobble itself just to the south. You see how close this is going to be in terms of where the largest storm surge is going to come. That's why we continue to fine-tune this. Thursday morning, 125-mile-per-hour winds as it moves on shore. And again, where it moves on shore and just to the south, the 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. But hey, you know, there's another hazard in the storm that we haven't talked a lot about because we've been so focused on the storm surge and where it's coming on shore, and that is rainfall. And we may easily get 5 to 10 inch rain amounts to go along with those hurricane force winds, and that in itself will be a problem. So it's a multifaceted storm. which doesn't look like it's going to start until probably sometime in earnest tomorrow lunchtime, early afternoon, when we start to pick those winds up. May get some rain later tonight and into tomorrow morning, but the core of this storm, the core of Milton, we're not going to feel it until Wednesday night. See, here's 10 p.m., and it's sitting just offshore at that point. And then by 11 o'clock, it's getting closer. Then by around 8 or 9 o'clock, it's working its way across the state. So winds will be picking up. We'll start the tropical storm force winds, it looks like tomorrow, say early in the afternoon. So that's when you're going to want to be where you're going to be for the duration of this event. Again, slowing it down by a few hours means we have all today, tonight, and a wee portion of tomorrow morning to continue to get prepped. 82.
All right, and of course, that is our Fox 13 Tampa team. We've been checking in with them, as well as our Fox 35 Orlando and Fox Weather teams to get the latest details. Now, I do want to remind you of the latest stats here, as we do have Hurricane Milton now a Category 4 storm. And as of the last update from the National Hurricane Center, maximum winds are about 155 miles per hour, with gusts, of course, higher than that. And we have learned here, coming up in just about an hour or so, at 7:45 a.m. Eastern Time, that is when we will hear from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, as he provides one of many updates on the storm that he will provide today. You can watch that live, raw, and unfiltered here, coming up again around at 7:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Do want to head to our final 2-minute commercial break of the hour, but a lot more coverage to get to in just a matter of minutes. You're watching Live Now from Fox. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 6:56 on the East Coast and 3:56 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of the latest as we do track Hurricane Milton. And you are taking a live look at our XRAD radar system as we track that monster storm. Right now, a Category 4 major hurricane. It's important to note that this is the second storm that will impact portions of Florida, with Tampa in the cone of uncertainty right now, nearly 2 weeks after seeing the impacts from Hurricane Helene. I do want to bring in Chad Chronister, the sheriff in Hillsborough County, Florida. That is where Tampa is located, joining us now to discuss all of this. Sheriff, I know we just had you on about 2 weeks ago, and now here we are again. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Of course, and you have one of the biggest counties there in the state of Florida, so you just dealt with the effects there of Hurricane Helene. As you see that you have another storm that is heading in that direction, and it's a monster of a storm, what goes through your mind? What do you do at that point?
Yeah, I think that's the worst part. You know, we're still healing, we're still recovering, and now we have this another monster storm coming. And that cone of uncertainty over last night, as this storm has slowed down, is definitely coming towards us. It's not all the way to Naples, all the way up to Crystal River. Now it's between Tampa and Sarasota. And with the width of the storm, what we know is that the effects are going to be more catastrophic. Storm surge went from 7 feet to 10 to 15.